library.
Most people know what makes them rich. They just don't believe everyone else knows it too. That's where the gap between knowing and becoming lives. And that gap is where your millions are waiting. Chapter 1. The Knowledge Paradox. Let me ask you something. You already know that discipline builds wealth, don't you? You know that delayed gratification works. You've heard 1,000 times that compound interest is magic. Everyone knows these things. Your friends know them. The wealthiest people you've ever met know them. Yet most people stay broke. Why? Because there's a difference between knowing something and knowing that everyone knows it too. This is where real power begins. Let me explain. I once met a young man in his 20s who told me he wanted to be rich. He had read every book. He knew the principles, but he would post about his financial struggles on social media while watching influencers flaunt their wealth. He would complain about his salary at dinner parties where everyone around him was doing the same. He knew wealth building worked, but in his world, everyone around him lived as if it didn't, and that made all the difference. The moment he shifted his environment, his entire psychology shifted. He started working with people who actually lived by these principles, not people who talked about them, people who enacted them daily. Within 2 years, he had multiplied his income. The knowledge didn't change. His belief that knowledge was actionable changed. This is the knowledge principle. It's not what you know, it's whether you inhabit a world where what you know is reinforced by those around you. Think about your social circle right now. You probably know 3 to 5 people well. These people shape your reality more than any book ever will. If 4 out of 5 of these people believe saving 20% is impossible, then in your lived reality it becomes impossible. Not because it's true, because social proof overwhelms individual knowledge. Money works the same way everywhere. The math is identical in New York and in smaller towns. The principles of leverage, focus, and value creation don't change. But if you're surrounded by people who believe wealth requires luck, inheritance, or immoral shortcuts, your brain will find evidence to support that belief. It will discount everything else. I watched a woman take a sales position at a boutique firm where everyone made 6 figures. Her previous job paid her $40,000 a year, and she had been there for 5 years thinking 6 figures was fantasy. Within 18 months at the new firm, earning consistently high income became normal to her. Not different, normal. Her capability didn't suddenly improve. Her nervous system stopped rejecting the reality of earning well because everyone around her was doing it. This is common knowledge in action. The wealthy don't just know differently. They inhabit worlds where wealth building is assumed, discussed, modeled daily. When you're in that environment, you don't have to muster willpower to save money. You do it because that's what the people around you do. You don't question whether investing is worth it. You notice that everyone you respect invests. You don't wonder if your income can grow. You see it growing around you constantly. Here's what most personal development misses. It focuses on individual mindset. Change your thoughts, change your life. But it ignores the gravitational pull of your environment. You can reprogram your thinking, and the moment you leave your office, your home, your social circle, the old programming reinstalls itself, because common knowledge is stronger than individual knowledge. Successful people understand this. They don't just read books about wealth, they join communities of ambitious people. They attend events where growth is the baseline expectation. They pay for premium communities where common knowledge supports their goals. Money is one example, but this operates everywhere. If you want to be fit, you need to be in environments where fitness is common knowledge, where your friends lift weights, where health choices are the default, not where everyone discusses their latest diet failure while ordering dessert. Same with relationships. If you're surrounded by people who treat commitment like a burden, you'll internalize that. If you're around people who have built something real and lasting, you understand that differently. Your career progression follows the same pattern. If everyone around you believes you've reached your ceiling will hold. If you're surrounded by people who have jumped across your supposed limits, those limits begin to feel arbitrary. The practical question becomes this: Who are you currently embedded with? Not the people you aspire to, the people you actually spend hours with weekly. What is their common knowledge? What do they assume is normal, possible, achievable? And more importantly, what version of you are you becoming based on that common knowledge? This is not about judgment, it's about physics. Your environment is not neutral. It's either pulling you forward or holding you back, and the pull is invisible because you stop noticing it. Common knowledge is the air you breathe. You don't think about it. That's why the first move towards real change isn't about changing yourself, it's about changing your world. It's about intentionally stepping into environments where the common knowledge supports your ambitions rather than contradicts them. I'm not suggesting you abandon everyone you love, but I am suggesting you become strategic about where you spend significant time. One mentor is worth 10 books because a mentor doesn't just transfer information. A mentor transfers a lived reality, a different way of being, a different common knowledge. The wealthy understand this at the deepest level. They protect their environment ferociously. They choose who they spend time with. They pay for premium communities. They relocate if necessary. They know that their net worth will never exceed their network's knowledge. Right now, you carry within you the common knowledge of your current world. It tells you what's possible, what's normal, what you deserve, and it's probably smaller than what's actually available to you. The moment you shift that common knowledge, everything shifts, not because you suddenly become smarter, because you stop fighting gravity. You stop swimming against the current of what everyone around you assumes to be true. This is where real wealth begins, not in the mindset, in the environment, not what you know, in what everyone around you knows and therefore makes actionable. What if in your next environment, prosperity was the baseline assumption? What if growth was the common language? What if people around you discussed not whether they could, but how soon? That's not fantasy, that's privilege, and privilege is simply being embedded in the right environment. The good news is, privilege is accessible. You can acquire it, you can step into it, you can become part of a world where your ambitions are normal. That's your first real power move, not changing your mind, changing your neighborhood. Not reading another book, joining a room where that book's principles are already lived out daily. This is where Chapter 1 closes, but your work begins now. Because knowing this changes nothing. Living it changes everything. Chapter 2. Building your intentional circle. You don't choose your family, but you absolutely choose your circle. Yet most people treat their circle like it's random, like these people just happened, like friendship is something that occurs to you rather than something you architect. That's the first mistake. In Chapter 1, we established that your environment shapes your reality more powerfully than your willpower ever will. Now comes the harder question. How do you actually build an environment that serves your ambition instead of dragging it down? The answer is intentionality. Not niceness, not comfort. Intentionality. Let me be direct about something most people won't say out loud. You cannot have the same friends at every stage of your life and still grow. People who served you beautifully at one level will become anchors at the next level. This isn't betrayal. This is maturation. This is survival. I knew someone who stayed incredibly loyal to his childhood friends. Good guys, decent guys, but guys who had decided at 25 that their life was set. They had their jobs, their routines, their limitations, and they defended those limitations religiously. Our ambitious friend kept trying to pull them forward. They kept pulling him back, not maliciously, just by existing at a different altitude. At 31, he finally made a choice. He didn't cut them off, but he stopped expecting them to understand his ambitions. He stopped trying to convince them that more was possible. And simultaneously, he started showing up intentionally in spaces where people were reaching for something bigger. A professional association, a mastermind group, an online community of entrepreneurs building real things. Within 2 years, his income had tripled. More importantly, his entire operating system had upgraded. He wasn't fighting upstream anymore, he was swimming with the current. This is how intentional circles work. They're not about rejection, they're about alignment. Think about it this way. Your circle is a system. Every person in it is an input. They input information, values, beliefs, and possibilities into your consciousness constantly. Most people never audit this system, they just let it run. They wonder why they're not progressing despite all their effort. But here's what's happening. Your circle is processing information at you 5 to 7 times daily. Someone makes a joke about rich people. Someone talks about how hard it is to save money. Someone shares a story about an investment that went wrong. Someone expresses jealousy about a mutual friend's success. These aren't attacks, they're common knowledge being reinforced. Your brain hears this thousands of times. It learns to believe it. It becomes your baseline operating system, and then you sit down to pursue your goals while running software designed for a completely different outcome. So how do you build your intentional circle? Start with honest assessment, not judgment, assessment. Look at the people you spend 5 or more hours with monthly. Write their names down. Now write beside each name what that person's dominant belief system is about money, ambition, relationships, growth, risk. You'll start seeing a pattern. You'll see your current common knowledge reflected back to you like a mirror. Next, ask yourself this question. Which of these people are at an altitude I aspire to reach? Which ones are living the life I actually want? Be specific, not the life they talk about, the life they're actually building. Notice that some people will disappear from this assessment. They're nice people, but they're not playing the game you're playing. They don't need to be in your circle for the next phase. That's okay. It's not rejection, it's sorting. Now here's where it gets strategic. For every person you're moving away from, you need to be moving toward someone else. Nature abhors a vacuum. So do human networks. This is where most people fail. They identify that their current circle isn't serving them, and then they do nothing. They feel guilty for thinking about leaving, so they stay. They complain, they resent, they stagnate. Instead, you need to become a student of finding people operating at the level you're reaching for. Where do these people congregate? That's your research question. If you want to build wealth, you go where wealth builders gather. If you want to excel in your industry, you go to the conferences, the associations, the communities where that happens. If you want to develop yourself, you join groups of people actively developing themselves. This requires spending money sometimes. Premium communities cost money. Masterminds cost money. Conferences cost money. Mentorship costs money. Most people skip this step because it feels expensive. But this is backward thinking. These are the most valuable investments you'll make because you're not just buying access to information, you're buying access to a different common knowledge. I know a woman who spent $3,000 joining a mastermind group. Her friends thought she was insane. That's money she could have saved. But in that mastermind, she met a business partner. Within 18 months, they had built something that generated $200,000 annually. The $3,000 became a 300 times return. And that's just the financial part. The real return was her operating system changing, her common knowledge upgraded. But here's the part people miss. You can't just join something and receive benefits passively. You have to become valuable to the group. You have to show up with genuine interest in other people's success. You have to contribute. You have to add. This is where nice people often struggle. They join premium groups and stay quiet. They consume but don't contribute. They hope osmosis will do the work. It won't. Your circle reflects your energy and contribution. So when you step into a new environment, ask yourself this: how can I be valuable here? What can I contribute? Who can I help? Not from scarcity, but from genuine interest. Generous people naturally create powerful networks because people want to support them. Now let's talk about the people you're keeping. Because here's the thing about intentional circles. You don't just add new people, you also have to elevate the existing relationships that are actually working. Identify the people in your current circle who are genuinely growing, genuinely ambitious, genuinely real. These are your keepers. Now invest in those relationships deliberately. Meet them more often, have deeper conversations, share your dreams and struggles with them. They become your inner circle, your core team. Then you have everyone else, the people who are fine to see monthly or quarterly. Good people, but not your inner circle. Your brain should be clear on this distinction. Most people do this backward. They have 500 acquaintances they check on constantly and 0 real friends. Then they wonder why they feel isolated and unsupported. It's because you can't build something significant without a real inner circle, and you can't have a real inner circle if you're spreading your energy to everyone equally. So, be strategic. Your inner circle of 3 to 5 people should be people who are reaching for something real, people whose ambition inspires yours, people who tell you the truth even when it's uncomfortable. One practical thing, start hosting. Invite people to things. Don't wait for invitations. Create the space where your intended circle can gather. A dinner, a hiking group, a book club, whatever works for your personality, but be the one who brings people together. That's incredibly powerful. Here's why. When you host, you control the environment. You control who sits at the table. You control the conversation. You become the node that connects people. And naturally, these people start thinking of you as someone valuable, someone worth staying connected to, someone worth supporting. I know someone who started hosting monthly dinners. Nothing fancy, just dinner at his place with interesting people. Within 2 years, 3 of the people in his circle had offered him business opportunities. 1 had become a real friend. But he didn't do it for the opportunities. He did it because he genuinely wanted to spend time with people he respected. The opportunities followed the authenticity. This brings me to something critical. Your circle cannot be transactional. You can't be in it just for what you'll get. People sense that instantly. Your interest has to be real. Your respect has to be genuine. You have to actually care about these people's success, not just your access to them. When that's true, something shifts. People invest in you, not because they owe you, because they want to see you win. That's the difference between a network and a circle. A circle is reciprocal, it's mutual, it's real. So, your work right now is this. Audit your current circle. Identify who's serving your growth and who's anchoring you down. Don't be cruel about it, don't ghost people, just be honest. Then start showing up in spaces where your intended circle already gathers. Add value, build real friendships, host, connect, show up authentically. Your next level is waiting, but it's not waiting in isolation. It's waiting in a room full of people reaching for something real. It's time to find that room, and then it's time to become someone who adds to it. This is where you stop being a passenger in your own life and start being an architect, the architect of your circle. The architect of your common knowledge, the architect of your future. Chapter 3. The Hidden Cost of the Wrong Company. Most people know intellectually that their circle matters. They nod along when they hear it. They even agree. But they don't feel the cost. Not really. Not until it's too late. So let me make the cost visible. Because what you can't see, you can't change. There are obvious costs to the wrong circle. Time, energy, emotional labor. But these are surface level. Beneath them lies something far more expensive, a cost you're paying in currency you don't even track, your future. I want you to do something. Think about someone in your life who had potential, real potential. Intelligence, capability, ambition when they were younger. But somewhere along the way, they stopped, they plateaued, they settled. Now look at their circle. Look at who they spend time with. I guarantee you'll see a pattern. People who stopped reaching, people who convinced themselves that their current situation is permanent. This isn't coincidence, it's arithmetic. Here's what happens inside the wrong circle. And it's so subtle you miss it while it's occurring. Every conversation reinforces a ceiling, not directly, indirectly. Someone shares a story about a risky investment that failed. Your brain files that away as evidence that risk is dangerous. Someone talks about their boss with resentment. You internalize that authority equals oppression. Someone expresses jealousy about another person's success. You learn that success isolates you from your community. These are tiny downloads happening constantly, thousands per week. Your brain processes them into a unified message. The message becomes your operating system, and your operating system determines your actions, and your actions determine your results. But here's what makes it so insidious. It feels like friendship. It feels like belonging. It feels like people who care about you. So you don't defend against it. You let it in. You let it reprogram you. I watched a friend get pulled down by this, and it was painful to witness. He had started a business. It was small but growing. He had energy, he had momentum, but his closest circle was people from his neighborhood. Good people, his friends since childhood. And they were uncomfortable with his success. Not consciously, but it was clear. When he'd talk about his business wins, the conversation would get redirected. When he'd mention his ambitions, there'd be a joke about him getting too big for his britches. When he'd try to discuss his vision for the next year, someone would remind him about a failed venture they'd tried once. At first, he tried to be loyal to them and pursue his business simultaneously. But you can't swim in two directions. Within 18 months, his business stalled, and then it died. He convinced himself he wasn't cut out for entrepreneurship, but the real story was simpler. He was being slowly submerged by a circle that had consensus that he shouldn't succeed. When he finally moved his business focus and started spending time with other entrepreneurs, everything changed. Same person, same capability, different environment, different results. This is the hidden cost operating. It's not what the wrong circle does to your bank account directly. It's what it does to your capacity, your willingness to risk, your belief in what's possible, your tolerance for being different. Think about it this way. Building anything significant requires an irrational level of belief. You need to believe in something before evidence proves it's possible. You need to endure criticism and doubt from external sources while maintaining internal certainty. You need to take risks that feel crazy to most people. Now imagine doing that while surrounded by people who are constantly, gently, unconsciously suggesting that what you're doing is foolish. Your nervous system can only handle so much contradiction. Eventually, you'll align with the stronger signal, and the stronger signal is usually the one from your immediate circle. Here's another layer of cost that people rarely discuss: opportunity cost. This is the invisible killer. Every hour you spend with the wrong people is an hour you're not spending with the right people. Every conversation that reinforces small thinking is a conversation you're not having that would expand your thinking. Every social obligation to people who don't serve your growth is an obligation that displaces time with people who do. Calculate this. If you spend 3 hours weekly with people who are invested in your smallness, that's 156 hours per year. That's roughly 4 full weeks of your year. 4 weeks that could have been spent with mentors, with peers doing bigger things, with people who would challenge you to grow. 4 weeks per year multiplied by 5 years is an entire year of your life. You could have spent a full year embedded in a community of ambitious, growing, creating people. Instead, you spent it defending your dreams in a room where dreams aren't encouraged. That's not a small cost. That's your life being spent in a direction you didn't consciously choose. But it gets deeper still. There's a neurological cost. Your brain is literally being shaped by your environment. This isn't philosophy. This is neuroscience. The people around you influence your neural pathways. They influence your hormonal responses to opportunity and risk. Studies show that proximity to ambitious people actually rewires your perception of risk and possibility. When you're surrounded by people taking calculated risks and succeeding, your amygdala responds differently to risk. When you're surrounded by people playing it safe, your nervous system learns to be afraid. This means the wrong circle isn't just costing you opportunities, it's changing your brain's actual capacity to recognize and seize opportunities when they appear. I know a woman who spent 15 years in a stable, safe job with people who valued stability above all else. She was competent, She could have moved into leadership, but every time she considered a bigger role, someone in her circle would mention the stress, the hours, the pressure. Her friends would commiserate about how they didn't want that responsibility. The cultural message was clear: ambition equals suffering. At 38, she was recruited for a director role at a different company. The role terrified her. She almost declined, but she went to an interview anyway. During the interview, the CEO mentioned that 3 of their top executives had come from the same mastermind group. They spent time together regularly. They pushed each other. They celebrated each other's wins. Something clicked. She took the job. She joined the mastermind. Within 6 months, she realized that her entire previous life had been lived in a fear chamber she didn't even know was a fear chamber. The stress she'd been warned about felt like excitement instead. The pressure felt like momentum. The long hours felt purposeful. Same woman, same capability. Different circle, completely different life. This is the cost that matters. The cost is the life you don't live because you surrounded yourself with people living lives that were too small for you. Now, I want to address something. You might be feeling guilty right now, thinking about people you need to distance yourself from. Let me be clear. This isn't about coldness. It's not about abandonment. It's about honest assessment and conscious choice. You can care about someone and still recognize that they're not meant to be in your inner circle. You can have warmth toward people from your past and still choose not to build your future with them. You can be kind and still be boundaried. What you can't do is pretend the cost doesn't exist. What you can't do is ignore the fact that every person in your circle is either pulling you forward or holding you back. There's no neutral position. The pull is either up or down. Here's what the cost looks like in real terms. Let's say you have the potential to earn $100,000 annually. Let's say your wrong circle is costing you 4 years of that progress. That's $400,000. But that's not all, because once you hit 100,000, you compound. So it's not 400,000, it's the compounding effect of 4 years of lost growth at every level above that. Now add in the relationships you didn't build, the skills you didn't develop, the confidence you didn't gain, the version of yourself you didn't become. That cost is immeasurable in dollars, but it's the most expensive cost of all. This is where I need you to get serious with yourself. Not angry, not judgmental, serious. Look at your circle. Really look. Which relationships are investments in your future and which are anchors to your past? Be honest. Your life depends on this clarity. The good news is that this cost is reversible right now, today. You can start shifting your circle. You can start spending time differently. You can start reaching toward people and communities that match your ambition instead of your history. But you have to be willing to feel the discomfort. You have to be willing to be misunderstood by people who don't understand growth. You have to be willing to be a bit different, to belong to yourself before you belong to your tribe. Because here's the final truth about the cost of the wrong circle. It's not paid in dollars. It's paid in the person you could have become, but didn't. That's the most expensive cost of all. Chapter 4. The Protocol of Ascension. You understand the principle now. You see the cost. You're ready to move. But wanting to change your circle and actually doing it are 2 different things. One is insight. The other is transformation. Let me give you the protocol, the actual steps, because knowing what to do means nothing if you don't know how to do it. This isn't theory. This is a framework that has worked for hundreds of people moving from one level to the next. Not all of them are wealthy. Some are artists. Some are athletes. Some are building relationships or health or influence. But they all follow the same basic architecture, and it works. Step 1 is honest inventory. You've already done this mentally. Now do it on paper. Write down everyone you spend 5 or more hours with monthly. Next to each name, write 1 sentence describing their dominant energy. Are they building something or defending something? Are they curious or certain? Are they generous or guarded? Don't judge, just describe. Then look at this list. Divide it into 3 categories: accelerators, neutrals, and anchors. Accelerators are people whose presence in your life is pulling you forward. Neutrals are people who don't particularly help or hurt. Anchors are people pulling you backward or keeping you stuck. This is where people hesitate. They feel guilty about anchors. They think loyalty means staying, but loyalty to your past is disloyalty to your future. You don't have to be cruel, you just have to be honest. You just have to choose. Here is the practical move. With anchors, you're going to lower contact gradually, not cut them off, gradually reduce. If you're seeing them weekly, move to monthly. If monthly, move to quarterly. If quarterly, move to seeing them once or twice a year. The key word is gradual. No drama, no announcement, just slowly reallocate your time. With neutrals, they stay at current contact level. No effort to increase, no effort to decrease. They're fine. They're just not part of your growth equation. With accelerators, you're going to intentionally deepen. You're going to reach out more. You're going to create reasons to spend time together. You're going to invest in these relationships deliberately. These are your keepers, your inner circle. Treat them that way. Step 2 is identifying where your next circle lives. This is research. This is detective work. You need to find the communities, the groups, the spaces where people operating at the level you're reaching for actually congregate. Let me be specific, because this is where people get vague. If you want to build wealth, you don't go to networking events for small business owners struggling to survive. You go to mastermind groups where people are actively building 7-figure businesses. If you want to excel in your industry, you don't go to local meetups. You go to the conferences, the associations, the circles where people at the top gather. If you want to develop yourself, you join communities of people doing the intentional work of growth. This requires research. It requires asking questions. It requires looking at where your role models actually spend their time. It requires investment. Here's something critical that people miss. You cannot succeed at a higher level in the same spaces where you succeeded at a lower level. The spaces change, the people change, the rules change. If you're trying to reach a new altitude, you cannot stay in the old airport. I knew someone who wanted to move into real estate investment seriously. She was reading books, she was taking online courses, she was doing everything right from an information standpoint, but she was doing it all in isolation. Then she invested $3,000 in a real estate mastermind. Not a course, a mastermind where 12 people gathered monthly to discuss deals, share strategies, and support each other's growth. In her first meeting, someone in the group mentioned a property deal they were passing on because their portfolio was full. She asked about it. She investigated. She ended up buying it for $150,000. Within 2 years, it had appreciated by $80,000. That's not even counting the rental income. But here's the thing. She didn't get that opportunity from the books. She didn't get it from the online course. She got it from being in the room with people operating at that level, from being part of a community with different common knowledge. Step 3 is entering these spaces with the right energy. This is crucial, and most people get it wrong. They enter as takers. They enter thinking about what they can extract, what they can gain, what's in it for them. People sense this instantly. It repels them. Instead, you enter as a student. You enter as someone genuinely interested in learning, genuinely interested in other people's success, genuinely interested in contributing. You ask real questions. You listen deeply. You look for ways to be helpful. This shift in energy changes everything. Suddenly, people want to help you, not because they owe you, because they see genuine curiosity and genuine interest, because they sense authenticity. Here's what this looks like practically. You join a mastermind group. In the first meeting, don't talk about your problems. Ask excellent questions about other people's challenges. Offer insight if you have it. After the meeting, reach out to one person individually. Start a conversation. Build the relationship. Within 3 months, you're no longer the new person. You're someone valuable in the group. Within a year, you're someone people go to. That changes the entire flow of information and opportunity toward you. Step 4 is hosting and connecting. This is where you shift from participant to node. Start small. Host a dinner. Invite people from your new circles. Don't make it about business. Make it about genuine connection. Good food. Real conversation. The people you invite will remember you. They'll think of you as someone who brings people together. They'll want to support you. I know someone who started a monthly dinner for people in their industry. Nothing fancy. His apartment, his cooking, but he was intentional about who he invited. People doing interesting work, people thinking deeply about the future. What happened organically was that these dinners became a real community. People started getting opportunities through that network. Some got investors, some got clients, some got partnerships, all because one person decided to host. When you host, you become the center of a network. That's a position of tremendous power. That's how you accelerate your ascension. Step 5 is maintaining integrity as you climb. This is the part that separates people who sustain their success from people who burn out or lose their way. As you move into new circles, you'll be tempted to shift who you are, to become what you think people at this level want. Don't do that. The people worth knowing don't want a fake version of you. They want the real thing. They want your actual values, your actual struggles, your actual vision. They want authenticity. That's what builds real trust. That's what builds real relationships. I watched someone move into a wealthy circle and completely abandon who they were. They started using phrases they didn't normally use. They started pretending to interests they didn't have. They started hiding their background. For a while, people tolerated it, but eventually, people sensed the inauthenticity. The relationships never went deep. The opportunities never materialized because people don't trust fakes. The people you want to know actually respect people who know who they are and stand firm in that. They respect people with real values. They respect people who are genuine. So, be genuine. Be yourself. Just be the best version of yourself. Step 6 is recognizing that ascension is recursive. You don't make this shift once and you're done. Every level you reach has a new altitude above it. Every circle you enter will eventually have a ceiling. When you hit that ceiling, you do this process again. You find the next level. You enter that space. You build relationships there. Successful people understand this. They never stop reaching. They never stop looking for the next circle, the next mentor, the next community, the next altitude. This is a lifelong practice. But here's what's beautiful about it. Each cycle gets easier. You've done it before. You understand the architecture. You know how to enter a space humbly and authentically. You know how to build relationships. You know how to contribute. So the second time is faster. The third time is even faster. Step 7 is patience. Real ascension takes time. You cannot rush this. If you join a mastermind thinking you'll extract value in 3 months, you'll fail. You have to think in years. You have to show up consistently. You have to build real relationships. You have to add real value. Most people quit right before the breakthrough. They join a mastermind for a year, nothing happens immediately, and they leave. They don't realize that relationships take time to develop, that trust takes time to build, that the real opportunities often come in year 2 or 3 when people really know you. Patience is your competitive advantage. It's the thing most people don't have. Most people want instant results. If you're willing to play the long game, you're already ahead. Finally, step 8 is celebrating the people who came before. As you ascend, you'll leave people behind. That's inevitable, but don't forget them. Don't become the person who abandons their roots. Check in occasionally, share wins, help them if you can. Not because they serve you anymore, but because they were part of your journey. I know someone who became very successful, and every year she took her childhood friends to dinner. She didn't expect them to understand her world.
She didn't need them in her business. She just remembered who was there when she was nothing. She honored that. That person had incredible integrity, and people sensed it. So here's your protocol. Inventory, research, enter with the right energy, host and connect, maintain integrity, recognize that ascension is recursive, play the long game, honor your past. This is how you actually do it, not in theory, in practice. This is how people move from one level to the next, not by luck, not by inheritance, by conscious, intentional, strategic choice, by understanding that your circle is your destiny and that your destiny is something you architect.
Chapter 5. The Becoming. We've traveled far together through these 5 chapters, from understanding that common knowledge shapes reality more than individual willpower ever will, to building your intentional circle deliberately, to seeing the hidden costs of staying in the wrong one, to having a clear protocol for actually ascending. Now we arrive at the final piece, the part that matters most, the part about who you're actually becoming. Because that's what this is really about. Not the money, though money will come. Not the status, though status will follow. This is about becoming the person who naturally operates at a higher level. It's about your nervous system upgrading. It's about your baseline changing. Think back to when you were younger. You probably had friends or family members who seemed to have a gift for certain things. They just naturally gravitated towards success. They just knew how to navigate rooms. They just understood how to build relationships or make money or lead. You might have thought it was talent. It wasn't. It was common knowledge. It was environment. That person had been embedded since childhood in an atmosphere where those things were normal, where success was discussed at dinner, where relationships were modeled well, where money conversations happened naturally. They didn't have to learn it in theory. They absorbed it osmotically. It became their operating system. Now you understand that, and that means you can do the same thing intentionally at any age. You can embed yourself in an environment where your ambitions are normal, where your vision is encouraged, where the people around you are already doing the things you want to do, and through osmosis, you upgrade. This is the real transformation, not discipline, not willpower, not grinding harder, elevation. Moving to an altitude where your goals become the path of least resistance instead of the path of maximum friction. I want to tell you about someone. Her name was Sarah. She came from a working class background. Her parents worked hard jobs. They were good people, but they had a scarcity mindset. Money was something you worried about constantly. Abundance was something other people had. This was common knowledge in her household. Sarah inherited this operating system. By 30, she was earning decent money, but spending it all. She couldn't save. More importantly, she couldn't imagine having wealth. She would fantasize about it, but her nervous system would reject it. Having money felt dangerous, felt wrong, felt like something was going to come crashing down. At 32, she made a decision. She joined a mastermind of women building businesses. For the first time in her life, she was in a room where wealth was normal, where women talked about 6-figure revenues like it was no big deal, where financial growth was the baseline expectation, where the conversation wasn't about struggling, it was about scaling. She didn't change her strategy. She didn't work harder. She changed her environment, and her nervous system, over time, began to adjust. Gradually, she began to believe that abundance was possible for her, not theoretically, actually, because she was surrounded by people who embodied it. 3 years later, she had built a 7-figure business. But here's the thing that matters. She didn't do it through effort and force. She did it because her nervous system had upgraded. What once felt impossible now felt natural. What once felt risky now felt obvious. She had become.
This is what happens when you shift your circle. You don't just gain information, you gain a new operating system. You gain a new version of yourself. But here's what people don't tell you. This process has friction, real friction. The people you're leaving behind will feel it. They might make jokes about you getting too big for your britches. They might express jealousy. They might pull you back in. This is normal. It's the system defending itself. And simultaneously, when you enter new spaces, you'll feel like an imposter. You'll feel like people will see through you. You'll feel like you don't belong. This is also normal. This is the friction of growth. Your job is to push through it, to know that the discomfort is a sign that you're in the right place, that you're reaching, that you're growing. The comfort you felt in your old circle was the comfort of a cage. The discomfort you feel in your new one is the discomfort of expanding. I want you to know something. You're ready for this, not because you're special, but because you've done the work to understand it. You've heard the principle, you see the architecture, you understand the cost, you have the protocol. That's more than most people ever get. Most people live their entire lives in the same circle they were born into. They never question it, they never see it, they never reach towards something bigger. You're different. You're reading this, you're thinking about this, you're considering changing it. That alone means you're further along than you realize. Here's what I want you to do starting today. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Write down 3 people from your current circle who are accelerators, people pulling you forward. Reach out to each one this week. Don't ask for anything, just reconnect. Just say you value them. Just deepen that relationship slightly. That's step 1. Then identify one community, one space, one room where people operating at your next level congregate. Research where they gather, find out how to get in, make a commitment to show up. That's step 2.
Finally, commit to reducing contact with one anchor slowly and deliberately over the next month. Not cruelly, just honestly. Just reallocate those hours towards something that serves your growth. That's step 3. If you do those 3 things, you've begun your ascension. You've started the process. You've shifted the trajectory. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable. Yes, there will be friction. Yes, people will question you. That's the price of growth, and you're ready to pay it. Because here's what I know about you. You didn't stumble onto this book by accident. You didn't listen to these 5 chapters by chance. Some part of you knows you're meant for more. Some part of you feels the ceiling of your current situation. Some part of you is reaching for something bigger. Trust that part. Honor that part. Feed that part by changing your environment, by surrounding yourself with people who believe in more, by embedding yourself in communities where your ambitions are normal, by becoming someone different through osmosis rather than through force. This is how real change happens, not through motivation, through migration. You don't talk yourself into a new life. You move yourself into a new environment and let that environment remake you. And here's the beautiful part. You don't have to know exactly where you're going. You don't have to have your entire 5-year plan figured out. You just have to take the next step. You just have to reach toward the next circle. You just have to say yes to the next opportunity that scares you a little bit. Each step reveals the next step. Each circle opens the door to the next circle. Each version of you makes space for the next version. This is how people who weren't born into privilege access privilege. Not through luck, through migration, through intentionality, through understanding that your circle is your destiny, and you are the architect of that circle. You came into this book carrying the common knowledge of your current world. You're leaving it with the understanding that common knowledge can be changed, that it can be upgraded, that you can step into a world where your ambitions are normal, where your vision is encouraged, where your success is celebrated. That's the entire message. That's the entire principle. Now go live it. I want to leave you with something. A question that I want you to sit with over the next week. Not answer immediately, just sit with it. What would you attempt if you were surrounded by people who believed you could do it? What business would you start? What relationship would you pursue? What dream would you actually voice out loud? That's not a fantasy. That's available to you, right now, this week. You can step into an environment where that becomes normal, where people don't just believe you can do it, where people have done it and know the way. As we close, I want to acknowledge something. It takes courage to change your circle. It takes courage to reach towards something bigger. It takes courage to be different from the people you came from. You have that courage. You might not feel it yet, but the fact that you're considering this change proves you do. So here's my genuine congratulations to you. Not for what you've accomplished yet, you haven't taken action yet, but for having the vision to see it, for having the honesty to recognize where you are, for having the humility to understand that your environment is more powerful than your willpower. That's the beginning of everything. This is where we end, but it's where your real beginning starts. You now know something that most people never learn. You now have a framework that works. You now have permission to change. You now have a challenge to step forward. The next chapter of your life isn't written yet. It's being written right now by the choices you make about who you spend time with, by the environment you choose, by the circles you move toward or away from. Write it well. Write it boldly. Write it with the company of people who believe in big things. I'm genuinely rooting for you, not because I know you'll succeed, but because I know what happens when someone with vision steps into the right environment. I know what happens when someone willing to be different finds community with others willing to be different. I know what happens when someone reaches toward the next circle. Everything changes. So go. Build your intentional circle. Host your dinners. Ask your questions. Reach toward the people and communities where your ambitions are normal. Let them remake you through osmosis. Become the person who was always inside you, but needed permission and environment to emerge. You're ready. You were ready the moment you decided to listen to this. Now it's time to act. Thank you for taking this journey with me, for sitting in these ideas, for opening yourself to the possibility that where you are is not where you have to stay. That's everything. From here, the rest is your choice, and I believe in your choice. Go build your circle. Go claim your next level. Go become.